Join From Beer to the Bible every week as Irvin Lee and co-host Sarah Oliveira McDonald warn others of the consequences of drug and alcohol addiction by being the voice of faith-based recovery. Every week, Irvin and Sarah help people get access to the treatment and counseling they so desperately need. They explore the depths of addiction and give practical life examples of how to recover and develop a new rhythm of living. The show is gritty, authentic, and simply raw while being rooted in the love, faith, and hope of God. Welcome to From Beer to the Bible.
Hi, and welcome to From Beer to the Bible. My name is Sarah McDonald. I'm your host today. We have Neal Williams. Say hi, Neal.
Hi.
And Seth Peebles.
How's it going?
From Elevated Lifestyle Academy here today. I'm so happy that you guys are here. Today we're going to be talking about walking in freedom. Before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe at FromBeerToTheBible.com. As always, we're going to come to you in a spiritual anchor. We're coming from Isaiah 61 today. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound. And that is a perfect scripture for today's guests. They have both been imprisoned, they are both in recovery, and they are both walking in freedom today through Christ Jesus and doing some great work in recovery. So welcome, guys. And we just want to kind of get started a little bit. How do you guys know each other? How did you guys meet?
I guess I can start with that. I guess when I was about the age of 3 or 4, went to a church that was formerly called New Church Christian Fellowship. While there, my older brother and I were in Awanas. My older brother was around Neal's age, and so I can't recall what group theirs was, but I know for me it was Sparks. I had a nice little red vest. With that red vest, we would sing, we were sparks for Jesus, sparks to light the world. We'll shine for Jesus and we'll tell each boy and girl. And it's like, I by far did not tell each boy and girl, but this was a song that I sang every week. And so, Neal was a good friend of my older brother. A lot of funny things my brother would do, maybe drop things on my head. One moment, I'm sure you can remember this one in particular. My brother, traced a penny on a piece of paper and, ran a pencil around it over and over and over again and convinced me in the middle of church that as long as you go with the pencil around it, that it'll balance on your forehead. And so by the end of service, I had all these marks all over my face for pencil. And
You're supposed to drop it and it would fall on the circle. So he had just been dropping this and making lines all over his face.
So you're really not paying attention in church?
Not quite.
No, not at all.
So you started out with the foundation of Christ. You guys have known each other since childhood. What did your journey of recovery look like? When did you guys kind of fall? When did you become in bondage? When did you think that change happened and that shift happened? Because you both grew up with the spiritual foundation of Christ.
I think Seth and I have both had our issues that came before the stuff that we did. But I think we both found we created a lot of distance between us and the church, in middle school and on leading into high school. And so the distance just increased.
Yeah.
And so our lifestyles changed. Church was no longer a priority. The people we were surrounded by were not God-fearing, God-loving people. They just were not. And so priorities, focus, and habits completely changed. And I don't think it was an intentional thing to go and live that life and say, I don't want anything to do with any of this, but it certainly looked that way. And a couple years into it, I know for me, there was no looking back. And it had come to a point to where I'm this person now and I can't even go back to church because I'm not going to be accepted there anyways.
Yeah.
So someone like me doesn't belong there anymore. And so I think we had just kind of resigned ourselves to that fact and just chosen that path. And then it landed us both in a lot of hot water, and we were reunited in 2013, right down the street from where we are right now in Tarrant County Jail. And Seth had already been in jail for a little while on some stuff, and he had what's called a bench warrant, and so it brought him back from another unit to Fort Worth right before I got booked in. So I came into Tarrant County and ran into him And that's kind of where everything started, because we were both about to launch on this. We didn't know how long we were going to be incarcerated. We didn't know what was next, and we didn't know what to do. We were both just completely lost. So us finding ourselves in the same place together again provided a little bit of hope. And we kind of made that commitment to, we did sit down and make a commitment that, hey, we're going to live for God, and we're going to help each other and hold each other accountable, and we're going to figure this thing out. So let's start moving forward.
So you guys found comfort when you saw each other when you were incarcerated.
Yeah.
And you made that decision to walk with Christ again in jail.
Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. Do you have anything that you wanted to say about that?
I think there was a moment of excitement for me, because it's like I was kind of already on this journey of kind of just seeking God. And this was what was weird. When I was at the unit that I was on, this guy that came in to minister, was at church on a Tuesday night. And he said, if there's anybody here that knows that, they need to get some freedom, and that they will do anything to get freedom at any cost. And if you know right now that you're not ready to go home, mind you, I'm like 2 months away from being released, but just somehow, some way, I slip up my hand. It was just like, I'm not ready, and he just prayed a prayer. And it was within less than 2 weeks that I was on bench warrant and headed back to Tarrant County looking at 15 years in prison. And so when I was there running into Neal, when I was assuming maybe he had traffic tickets or something like that. And so when he let me know that he wasn't there for traffic tickets, it was like, there was like, I feel bad for you, but at the same time, like, yes, I've got a road dog. Things are going to be okay.
Well, and he didn't know, but on March 29th, I had prayed a prayer, and I hadn't prayed in, I don't know. I couldn't remember the last time I prayed. And my prayer was very clear and very simple. It was, God, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, I need you to show up. I've gotten myself into a place that I can't get out of. So if you're real, I need you to show up and do something. And he did. 4 hours later, I was picked up, and it was in dramatic fashion. So it was very clear to me that was an answered prayer. So when I walked through the day room and this dude calls out my name and I look and see Seth, there were no more coincidences.
Yeah.
It was, okay, here's yet another sign of God saying, I hear you and I'm here.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do you both feel that your spiritual foundation as a child led you to where you guys were in that moment, where you made that decision?
I think I could come with a good answer for that. I think with our roots, and with the parents that we had that were, good, loving parents, or having that foundation in Christ, it's like when things hit the fan, like the first thing you would do automatically is saying, God, where did I miss the mark? Where did I drop the ball here? And so, at least for me, I can speak for myself, saying it was very, very easy, to understand that God has a solution. I've got a problem that I don't have an answer to, and He's the only one that can provide that.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, it was, I didn't know where to turn. And every time I thought about my dad and his faith and the things that he had told me, everything was consistent and everything was calm. So it was every time I looked to the church or looked to someone in my life who I knew was a man of faith, I saw peace and calmness. And I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even understand or wrap my head around that. So all I could think of, where's still water? Still water. And I would just think of my dad and his faith, and where does that come from? He always told me the same thing, and so we looked to the Word, and that was just, there was zero doubt, which is funny because I didn't trust anything or anyone.
Yeah.
But in that, I had no doubt that I would find peace.
Yeah. In the midst of chaos, there He is.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened to me. I found Jesus when I went to treatment again for the first time in a long time. My shame and guilt had overtaken every aspect of that. I didn't feel worthy of Christ's love anymore. And, God's word says that we are worthy. We are worthy of His love no matter what.
Right.
And I love that. What was the hardest part in walking in freedom with Christ after being imprisoned?
I think for me it was that Neal and I had both made this decision to walk with the Lord and to develop good relationships. For me it was getting out of treatment and going into ministry school, and right around the same time, 3 months for me, and I think was it 3 or 4 months for you? I can't remember. roughly after getting, at least for me, out of treatment. It was very quick. We both got indicted on charges. For me, it was 4.5 years prior, and for him, pretty
2.5.
2.5. So it's like, we're making this good decision. And so there's a lot of questions that came up, like, God, if you're sovereign, if you're in control of this, if you've caused all this to work together for your good, like, why is this happening right now? Why now, of all times, is this happening? I don't understand. I've finally made a decision to turn my will and my life over to you. But now everything's just kind of blurry and it doesn't make sense anymore.
So you both made that decision, and you both were still going to be incarcerated for a length of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, this was yet another unknown.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult to continue. We hadn't been doing the right thing for a long time. And so when we made that change in the decision, it was difficult. Like, of course, it's difficult for anybody, but we had our mind made up. And so here we are, like a year and a half and a little bit more into really doing this. And then we got out, and now we have our feet on the ground, and we're really doing it out there in the community. And then it's like, we can't even, like, even when we try and do something right, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're out of control, just can't do anything. What do we do? And so that was a challenge, but man, I'm glad we didn't make the wrong decision.
Yeah. Walking in freedom sometimes means you're still going to have to accept the punishment that, you made your path, and, God is still there with you. So how did that work? How did you accept your punishment, if you will, and continue to walk through that? What kept you living with Christ?
For me, honestly, it was a little bit challenging going through ministry school. I mean, you're around this environment where people are, trying to walk in faith, and they're believing for victory. They're like, you're not going to prison in Jesus' name. The Lord declares it, and there's even people that were giving, quote unquote, a prophetic word or something that they felt like God had shared with them.
Sure.
And at that time, I was really immature in my faith. So I would take that rather than, as the word says, looking in a mirror dimly. Eventually we'll see God face to face. It's like, I wasn't understanding that we know in part and prophesy in part. I was thinking, this is what they said. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, there's a bit of distrust. I was like, this might be a gimmick. Maybe this isn't really what it's all cracked up to be. And walking for 2 years, while on bond, leading worship at church or having moments of victory, having to deal with that. The consequence for me was 9 years in prison. I ended up doing 5 of that. But, I guess the hope came from knowing that there were some people still in my life that were supporting me. The relationships in my family had been reestablished, and they didn't go away.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, every single person that was giving me those words of encouragement at that time, whenever the bad news struck, all of them disappeared.
Yeah.
But everybody that was like, I'm with you no matter what happens, like, those people are still in my life today.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're walking with the Lord for 2 years. You're in prison for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Neal? What's Neal doing?
When this all happened, mind you, I'm still kind of, I don't know, greasing the wheels, and I'm getting used to this lifestyle. I grew up in church, but at this time in my life, I was not really ready for church. I wasn't ready for small groups. I wasn't ready to be hugged. I wasn't ready for any of that.
Yeah.
And so Seth he had more enthusiasm. He jumped in, and he went to school, and he was with all those folks that he's talking about. And so when we're walking through this stuff and people are prophesying and saying this, I'm in his ear saying, dude, this doesn't feel right. And so, he was in a challenging position, and then I'm sitting here like, what are these crazy people talking about? And like, prophecies, like, I just believe in God again. Like, you come talking crazy, like, we know how the criminal justice system works, buddy. It's like, I don't think so. Nobody's going home today.
Well, that's a good balance, though.
Right. And so, but again, I can be jaded. And so I didn't want to be negative. And so walking through that and trying to be positive and support my brother. I mean, I had to be there and say, listen, I don't agree with what they're saying, but no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. And he tells us that everything will go to the good, will work to the good of him. he's going to take whatever we have and do something with it. Look what he's already doing.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what we chose to stand on and we had been conditioned by our environment to kind of tolerate some craziness.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, people are going to say stuff and people are going to do stuff. We know what we're going to do and we know how to do it. So let's just keep moving forward.
So whenever you found out that your friend was going to go to jail for 5 years, what happened? What did you feel like? And what did you do during that time?
So he texted me that morning because we knew the court date was coming up. He went to court. We texted before. And then one of his family members texted me after to let me know what had happened. And I remember sitting, and I was at work, so I looked over it and I prayed, and something just kind of clicked, and it said, okay, well, you better get busy because he's got to have something to come home to. So then it was just real clear to me that I knew my role, and it was time to get busy and get back to what I was already doing. And I just knew that I knew where he would be, and I knew I would be there for him.
Yeah.
So it was just, I made up my mind, and I knew I made a decision that day that when he did come home, there would be something to come home to, and that it would be an environment, structure, and that he would have a job, and that he would know, I don't know, it would be a direction, and that I would be there to welcome him and show him. And so that was what I thought about that day.
Okay. And then Elevate was born.
Yeah. And then so some years later, 2020, Elevated Lifestyle Academy was born. Started it March 4th, 2 weeks before COVID fun. So that was interesting. And then Seth came home, was it July 2nd, 21? July 1st I picked you up?
Yeah.
July 1st, 2021. And things were in full swing.
That's awesome. So during those 5 years, what kept you grounded? What kept the foundation of Christ kind of at bay? And what did that look like? Were you in the Jesus Club?
So I would like to say that's what I was a part of, and in some ways, sure. But for me, it was like being on the first unit I was on. Whenever you're kind of just in transit, waiting to get placed on your first unit that you're assigned, I was like, God, give me the opportunity to still be able to lead people in worship. I don't really care where it's at. And sure enough, I would say he sent me all the way to El Paso. So I'm 15 minutes from the Juarez, border, hearing gunshots go off.
Oh,
and
God.
It was kind of crazy. But sure enough, 6 days a week, I was able to lead worship. On Sundays, there was 4 or 5 services. So it's not only was I able to grow in my gift, but I was conditioned, for hours at a time, being able to play without growing weary or without getting weak. And it was just a group of people that I was with the whole time I was incarcerated. From there, being transferred to the only faith-based unit that's in Texas.
Oh, wow.
Was the Prison Fellowship Academy over in Richmond, Texas, kind of outside of Houston and Sugar Land. And while there, I was just given the opportunity to play even more. So now it was not only 6 days a week, it was now 7 days a week for multiple services. If there was an event, they're calling me up. They're saying, okay, where if I was at work, they'd pull me out of work, make me come play.
Okay, Talk a little bit about what that prison is like, and how do you request to go there?
You do request to go there, and it's just a small selection of people that will make it to that unit. And so I would like to say that everything there is man, this was the best experience of my life, but it was not necessarily the curriculum that I had. It was the encounter that I had with the Lord. It was the fact that, oddly enough, it was Neal kind of made a deal with me at the beginning of incarceration that said, I'm going to help you grow and learn in whatever ways that I can. So all you have to do is write me, tell me what books you want, and I'm going to send them upon request. And so every time it was
not just novels, but it was education.
No, none of them were novels.
Material.
I'd asked for some novels and he didn't send them.
He's like, no, you're in there to study.
You got to work.
Yeah, and it's weird. I didn't know I was going to be a personal trainer when I got out. I didn't know I was going to be a life coach. So I'm having Neal send me, aside from spiritual books, books on finance, books on real estate, and a ton of books on personal training. Not necessarily the personal training, but training aspect in general, not knowing that all that stuff was going to come as soon as I came home.
Yeah.
And so I look at, yes, the spiritual aspect of things, but God also wants us to be good stewards. And so it was learning stewardship even when I had nothing.
Yeah.
So that when I would come out here and have something to manage, that would be a good steward.
Yeah.
How did you have any guilt or shame that you were out and he was in there?
Sure.
What did that?
Yeah, plenty. You know, I'd early in recovery, I struggled with a lot of whys. I had a close friend who took her life right after we got out. It was in August of 2014. And then my sponsor's son passed in my third year of sobriety, and we were real close. There was a lot of whys, like, why is this happening, and why me, and why do you want me here? And it all came down to I always had to resign to the fact that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And all I know is that I'm here now and that you have a plan. And so whatever that means, I just want to play my role really, really well.
Yeah.
And so, Seth helped me because he would write me letters. Sometimes he would write me a letter just to say he wanted to encourage me and stuff and tell me how proud of me he was. And hearing him be that positive, knowing what he's going through. Like, I knew where he was, and I knew what he was around, and I knew what he was living in. And so when he's speaking life to me from that place, I had no excuse.
Yeah.
So there was no excuses. It was not, I just wouldn't accept that. I wasn't allowed to have an attitude like that.
Yeah.
And there was no time to feel sorry for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like, we chose this. We asked for this.
Well, it sounds like Seth kind of had more of a burning bush experience, and you still had the doubt, but you were still kind of rolling with it. Like, I do trust you, Lord, but I don't understand what's next. And I don't really know, where I'm going, what I'm doing. When was your big, aha moment? Or what was did you have a burning bush experience at some point?
Mine was gradual and in small spiritual experiences, answers to prayer and an increased faith, seeing things come to fruition, seeing things work out for him, even though where he was when he got accepted to the program and he got moved, and then he got to play his instruments and he got to play praise and worship. That was huge. So seeing him be taken care of by God in there, for me, I was, building this career and I had all these things going on. And so there came a time where I felt like I was just grinding and pushing to build something. So in 2019, right before I started my business, I had been promoted to general manager of this company. I had worked really hard for it. I was teaching a class on Fridays, doing a meeting on Wednesday nights, a service commitment, sponsoring guys, training, doing powerlifting competitions. I just set a state record. All these things were going really well. That promotion took me away from people. And so I went from managing like 55 people to being a GM and not doing a lot of face-to-face interaction anymore.
Sure.
When that happened, and then so it was a sequence of events, and I heard what happened was on a Friday, I left work to go teach this class. I would break out for a little while, teach the class, and go back and close the week up. And on the way back, I'm driving back to work, thinking about how I'm going to not say hi to my 55 people. I was going back to this stupid office, and I was going to look at my computer screen, and I said, God, what are we doing? And he said, well, what we're doing is this, and where you just came from is what you're supposed to be doing more of. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was thinking about where I just left, teaching the class and being with those guys. And so that was the first time where I heard him speak to me, and he said, you're going to do something else. Yeah. And I just had no idea that COVID would happen. I would start because when I started my business, it was supposed to be, I'm going to see how this goes because I really enjoy this work, and I'm going to see if I can help some people. Then COVID happened, and it was like, oh, I can't rely on anybody.
Did you walk out in faith with your business, or did you continue working at the other place?
So a year later was when I quit my job and went full time, and that was scary. And I remember I had prayed. It was the beginning of January 2021, and I had prayed to God, and I asked him, I said, if you want me to do this, I need you to speak very clearly, and I need you to be loud. Like, I need you to talk to me because I'm worried, and these don't line up, finances. I can't live like that. I can't live on this. I need to do this. And I was thinking about asking someone to marry me at the time. So I had a lot of stuff going on. And after I prayed that prayer, a week later, I was reading a Tony Evans book, Kingdom Man. And there's a portion in the book where he's talking about walking into your territory and claiming it. It's already there.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading that part where it's like, it's already there. All you have to do is walk into it and claim it. And an email, this is 10:30 at night on a weekday, and an email goes off my phone. And of course, knowing the industry we work in, it's somebody who's saying, I'm flying you here. This family has hired you. And it's the biggest client I had, and it was full time, and it was an answer. It was something I'd been working on for weeks, had just, there it is. And while I was reading that, after I had prayed that prayer, so it was like, hello, I hear you. Yes, sir. And that was kind of, I knew that it was going to be not okay. It was going to be good.
Yeah.
It was going to be better than okay.
So let's talk a little bit about Elevated Lifestyle Academy. Mm-hmm. What is it? What do you do? I know that you're now a life coach for Elevated Lifestyle Academy. So we want to know a little bit about, your role in that and how families can reach you guys. And
Sure. So Elevated Lifestyle Academy, we are case management, life coaching, and consulting. What we do is we work with families and their loved ones who are going through or battling addiction, alcoholism, sometimes just behavioral stuff. We help the family navigate through that. So we educate them on addiction and alcoholism, recovery, and things like that. Help them understand how to establish those boundaries and how to support their loved ones going through that stuff. And for the loved ones, for the individuals who are struggling, we provide customized nutrition plans, workouts. We do music lessons, so drums, guitar, piano. What else do we do? We have family coaching as well. So it's a full-scale wraparound. We just want to show them how to walk through and at any stage of the treatment process.
Yeah. So when you got out, did you go full-time into Elevated Lifestyle Academy, or were you did Neal walk you through exactly what he's talking about?
This is actually where it gets exciting. So being released in July 1st of 21, I had this radical idea. You'd always see people get out of prison, they would do stuff, or they would go like throw money, or they would, show their chain, and, look at you, you're in there and I'm out here. And so it was it was very cocky, very arrogant. But for me, I said, you know what, I'm going to stoop low. I'm going to ask my mom for a scooter. And so she brings this scooter, I guess Neal goes and picks it up. It's decorated with lights, all sorts of, this is like an aggressive scooter with wheels, probably about that big.
That's a legit scooter.
And so, it's still sitting in my mother's garage for my nephews. But, here I gave people my word. I said, I'm leaving on a scooter. They go, no, you're not. Neal's there to get me, brings me clothes, like a laptop. I was decked out, I was ready to go. Handed me an envelope of cash, and it was like, all that stuff feels really, really good when you're like going from nothing in prison to, okay, there's something going on out here. Well, here's the scooter. I take off, riding, we leave, but I was still a nervous wreck. Like a lot of emotional stuff was still going on. While I was actually in prison, after 5 years, I had relapsed, had a drink while I was in prison. So I'm sharing with Neal that I'm kind of starting over at this. And come this October, I'll have 2 years of active recovery.
Congratulations.
But what's really, really fun about this is I'm on an ankle monitor. I'm at home. Neal sets up a job interview for me to be the house manager of a sober living that's in a mansion in Southlake, 10,000 square foot mansion. I'll live at this place. I'm thinking, I'm going to this interview on an ankle monitor. Like, this is crazy. But all of it was exciting, and so, like, the lady was ready for me to move in, and start then. And I'm like, can't, I've got to be home at 6. And so it's like, Neal already understood, and so we went outside to have a conversation to ask if I wanted to take the job, and so of course I wanted to, and immediately God worked in my favor, took me off the monitor early. Like, I didn't even ask for it. It was an accident. Wow. For the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, or the state of Texas, or any justice system, they don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Not with us, at least. They make sure to get theirs. But what was neat was getting off of that early, and me actually having like this spiritual experience of, just like Joseph being from the pit all the way into a palace. I'm the manager of a sober living house, house manager, and living in that with the gym. And while I was there, I was working on getting my personal training certification, had launched my business while I was there. And so I would, manage the sober living, but also leave and go train people. It was like Neal was saying, like, this is the pattern of living now. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do. And it was shortly after that, while still doing personal training.
Home group. We had the home group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. And was working in a different gym for a while over in South Lake. And Neal had kind of just brought it to me, like, hey, it's ready. You know, like, let's go. Let's get into this thing full swing.
That's
and
awesome.
hired me on as a life coach working for Elevated Lifestyle Academy. So I get to teach music lessons, give the people, you know, their nutrition. So already having that background in training, just like Neal does, we're able to help these, you know, young men, you know, grow.
Yeah.
So it's not just, hey, I want to grow spiritually, but hey, you don't really have a choice. You're going to grow physically as well. And that's just kind of the full package deal.
That's awesome. Well, it's time to wrap up, but before we end, how do families reach you at Elevated Lifestyle Academy if they need your services?
Sure. So the best way to reach us is to go to our website. It's www.elevatedlifestyleacademy.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Elevated Lifestyle Academy, LLC. And then you can find me on Instagram. It's NEALSON85. And on LinkedIn. Seth, you want to tell them how to find you?
Yeah, you can either find me on Instagram at Seth Peebles 90 and also at NTX Fortified Fitness. And so able to do both of those, you'll reach, you know, me or Neal for either one of those avenues.
And if you forget all that, you can reach us at beardofthebible.com. We're so happy that you guys were here today.
Thank
If
you for
any
having
families
us.
out there need help, don't know what they're doing with a loved one that's an active addiction, please reach out to us. We're here to help you. Neal and Seth are here to help you. They have a great program for you to kind of land on. And we're just so thankful that God is providing so many miracles. I heard so many miracles in your story.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's From Beer to the Bible. Make sure to tune in next week when Irvin and Sarah gift you with even more addiction recovery information. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember, we're always there for you.